It was a mutual breakup, Law. Yeah, we're live.
Became so difficult that, like, I'm surprised. I watched all of the films that you guys slated for tonight on Friday night. Like, I stayed up until I watched them all.
Nice.
Because I'm like, I am not doing this again. Because the moment I went and did, what was it, Everything Everywhere All at Once was like my turning point, because I didn't finish the film by the time the show started. I had to sit there and listen to Eric and Michael talking. Like, I couldn't do it anymore. I feel so guilty. And then, of course, SniDBitS being the kind friend to let me have a way out to not look like an idiot.
No sound on MrMarvelite. I'm like, yes, but there is. We should be fully back and ready to go. All right. We are glad to have MrMarvelite back, and we are glad that you are still a returning permanent person within the Real Study. You are a host, whether you're here or not. You're always here in spirit. And of course, any Marvel movie, comic book movie, or any movie you have an interest in, always let us know and jump in when you're ready.
Yes.
If you ever want to come back,
Yeah, or, your family, your home. So that said,
well, thank you. Now you're gonna make me cry. Don't do that.
That's what we do. Anyway, so
we need something from you. We need tears. We need blood, sweat. I need to make a potion.
I'm sorry, I'm not a thespian like you are. I don't.
You're right.
That said, we are going to skip the news because we would have had all of that time to talk about the news. We do have a live pre-review coming up soon, so this is going to be a first attempt at a live pre-review.
That's me.
Biggie is out for the week. Everybody wish him well. We hope he's doing well. Brian is not here tonight because it is his
birthday.
So happy
Brian!
Brian.
Happy birthday, man!
I'm glad to.
You don't look a day over 25.
I know, and especially with that like lower gray he's got right there.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's almost like he dyed it so that he could look older.
I kind of dig it.
That said, it looks like I have last week's film still sitting up there. I'm going to drop that. That's no good.
Benjamin Button.
But we did watch the Benjamin Button films last week, or the film, and then some other Cate Blanchett films. But tonight, it's all about Paul Rudd, and we're going to get right into it right away.
The man that never ages.
Who hasn't seen I Love You Man before this? I mean, really? Okay, we're going to start with MrMarvelite anyway. MrMarvelite.
Both of them were new to me.
That's good. The Fundamentals of Caring was new to me as well. So, MrMarvelite, what did you think of I Love You Man?
Wait, you're gonna have me go before what I have to know what she's gonna say so that I know. No, I'm just kidding. So okay, so I Love You Man. Like, okay, so I'm the kind of guy that I struggle with awkward comedies, and this one definitely was one of those awkward comedy things. Not only just because of the awkward conversations that were had that were not necessarily like necessary, they were just in this, and I think what happens for me is these movies, and I think that's why I like Anchorman, I Love You Man, the Hangover films and stuff like that. It's just it takes me out because they're obviously they would never happen in the real world, and so it was interesting. It was neat to see Jason Segel as a different kind of person. Like, I remember him from like the Muppets movie and from How I Met Your Mother, and so it was definitely interesting to see him like that. And it was interesting to also that it was kind of like there was a growth between. It was very much a Paul Rudd film. It was very much about Paul Rudd's character, but it was also a development for this guy as well, this friend who was losing his friends and everything else, and was holding on to the past and everything, and had to come to terms with where he was at to really be the friend he needed to be. And it was kind of interesting. I enjoyed that. Lou Ferrigino, I just said his name wrong.
You did, but I love it. Yeah. I'm gonna say it like that from now on. It's over.
Lou Ferrigno.
Like a nice...
I said that on TikTok, and like that video blew up because people wanted to correct me and call me names for it. So Lou Ferrigno.
But that's a thing that people do. They mess up stuff so that people can comment that you messed up stuff, and it helps the algorithm keep pushing their stuff.
Helps the fat finger syndrome, because it happens to me all the time on accident, but I just tell people I do it on purpose. So I like it.
How does having fat fingers prevent you from pronouncing things properly?
No, I
Oh, the texting. I got
texting,
you.
In all my words. So
I got you. No, but like literally, I remember what was it? I said Don Cheadle once because it was like 3 a.m. and
No excuse.
that video went viral. So thank you, Don Cheadle. But it was a great film. I did enjoy it. It's different. Like there were times where I'm sitting there going, okay, this is gonna be really awkward in a like time. And at that moment I had to get up and like walk away from it. And you guys know I have an anxiety. Like anytime Paul Rudd's character was trying to use like slang and was like miserably like coming up with things that made no sense, I died inside a little bit every single time. But yeah, I liked it. It's not my cup of tea for a style of comedy, but it was actually one that I was glad I saw because. And can I also say, like, I'm not a big Andy Samberg fan, but like I liked him in this role. Like he seemed a little bit more genuine than I think a lot of the stuff he does. So
the fact that he played a gay man was great. I kind of love that he played a gay man.
Lala, please go ahead, take it away.
Oh, so I Love You. Honestly, I've seen all of these films before, so I was like, finally, I've seen them all. Like I was like, this is nice. I don't know, like. Paul Rudd has a specific type of comedy to me, and I think this film hits home on like what he does. Like just the like goofy, like the slap of the bass is like literally Paul Rudd. Like the moment that scene came up, I was like, that's where this is from. Like I kind of remembered. Jason Segel to me is kind of like a one-noter as well. So like MrMarvelite said, I did enjoy. Mind you, I've seen him in other things other than this, but like, it's always nice to see him outside of the Marshall. How I Met Your Mother, because for 9 years you can like become this person, and that's all people see when they see you in movies.
Cuddly, and naive.
Right, you know what I mean. So it was nice to see him more of like a harsh, brasher type of character. Honestly, you don't really see a lot of romantical, I'm gonna call it romantical type of comedies. You do see it where like dudes are already friends, but I love this film because like I sort of relate to it. I'm a person who don't have like a lot, like Rashida Jones's character had a billion friends,
close girlfriends,
a billion friends. And I will say this, and because this movie came out in what 2006, what was this? No, 09. 09. This movie came out in 09. The fact that Rashida Jones, she identifies as a Black woman, she's biracial, but she identifies as a Black woman. I don't think there was a Black friend in her circle of like 1,500 bridesmaids. I was just like, we could have had 3. We could have had 3. They didn't even need to speak, but they could have been 3. So that was just like a little odd. But and I like Rashida Jones as an actor too, but she does have a one note ish type of.
Well, she's that character.
Yeah, because the way that she acts on here, she kind of acts like that in The Office. It was kind of like, I was like, there's not a lot of variety there. But I relate to this film because I'm 36 and I don't have like a barrage of friends. I found my best friend like 3 years ago, and she lives in North Carolina. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, I really was like, if I ever got married, I wouldn't have anybody. I feel like it would be like reverse. Like I would be the one that didn't have anybody, and like my husband would have like a whole bunch of friends. So I kind of related to this because it's hard to find friends when you're not a child. Like children could just hit you with dirt, and then you're best friends because I got hit with dirt.
It's like 3 places they tell you to meet friends. You got to go to church. You got to find them at work or at school, right? Those are like the 3 places to meet people. And I guess the supermarket, but what do you like? I see you're getting the minced garlic today.
Right, like what do you do? So it's like really hard to find friends when you get older because, you get kind of distrustful as you get older. You're just like, oh no, you might chop me up and put me in the walls. But
there's
this film was
social media though, these days.
No facts, because like look at you two.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, my people. So I gotta find you on social media. But I don't know. This film to me was just like, I feel like they could have went way overboard with some of the slapsticky stuff, but I think they like really kind of like just honed in on what worked for the film. There were some moments where I was just kind of like, and we need to move on from this scene. We just.
Would you say like because this is kind of like what popped in my head? It's like characters of like different friend groups.
Of different, it is because it's like, and also for me, I don't like lingering. Once the joke hits, you fade to
But
black and you
there's
go to the next
a-
scene, or you go to the
That's
next
Paul
scene.
awkward,
Rudd.
and
He's
that's also
all about the
awkward.
linger.
That's awkward comedy as well, kind of as a rule. You want to like kind of sit in it for a minute. That's kind of like how awkward comedies seem
No,
to
I
work.
get it, but just for me personally, I'm
that's
just like,
fair.
okay,
I'm
like
with
because
you.
like the slap of the bass scene, I loved it because you could tell at the end he was just being Paul Rudd, and
Right.
she laughed like a natural
real
laugh,
laugh,
and like
right.
to me that's funny to see those things.
I do like that
But
that
when they
came
were
back
just-
at the end too, when he like just does that for
he
a
was like
second, and then
by
she,
himself.
Like,
It was
calls him,
so
right?
it was so sad, and I will say this, and I'll end so snippets can go. Kind of didn't like Rashida Jones's character in this. Just a tidbit because it was like. Again, this is like 09 writing, and sometimes 09 writing feels like 90s writing, where they're just like, we're just going to give you stuff, accept it, and we're not going to dig any deeper. Films have gotten to the point where they get a little bit deeper into character development and character arcs and stuff like this. Her character never really admitted to me personally, like the way I would have liked to see it, that like she depended on him really not having any friends. Like she's like, because she benefited from him for her being his main friend. Like she benefited
didn't
heavy
realize how things would change if he got a friend.
if he got a friend.
Right.
And then it was just like one of those, like when they argued in the car, and he was just like, sometimes I just want things to be between us. And I was like, that's a real life problem. Like you're mad at me for telling somebody that I consider my friend, no matter how somebody could be my friend and I only known them for like 5 minutes, but because of if there's a connection, I might spill the beans to you, but you don't get to dictate. And I just felt like she took him for granted. And I don't like when characters don't admit like I did take you for granted.
He even calls her out because like she wanted it between them, but then she wasn't doing that as well.
She wasn't doing that as well. You got like 15 friends. And they know about like even when she announced that they was getting married, she was like, lock that mouth down. Okay, so you've been telling them the stuff I've been doing to you, everything. Right. And you mad about this because I just like that Jason Segel was a character that stood up for him. Mm-hmm. He was like, give the love back. Yeah. Just give it back.
Everything about this movie is literally a romantic comedy with every trope for a romantic comedy, but between the two dudes. And I love the breakup scene because they do all the fun tropes, but even they bring something for each other. You know, it's Sydney's character needs to be called on his bullshit because he thinks he's everybody's like favorite and he's the best, to everyone. When in reality, he lets his shit, dog shit on the beach or wherever they shit, and he also constantly is talking up everything, even though he's alone and all of his friends have moved on. So that, and then of course Paul Rudd's character needs to be cooler, and Sydney gives him a little bit of that, shows him how to not Jobin or Totes McGoats his way through life. Those were awkward moments. I think those were more awkward.
Oh, you have to Totes McGoats through life.
The guy that thought he was gay like leaned in and kissed him. That was less awkward than Jobin and Totes McGoats and slapping the bass.
To me, that scene was hilarious because that's how I would expect. Maybe I'm make a little racial. Maybe not a black man, but that's how I expect like a man to like react. Period. To be like, because it just came out of nowhere. And sometimes people would be like, if that was me, I would have. No, you wouldn't have if it came out of nowhere.
Right? You're either do what
like
Paul Rudd did, which was just stop.
He was so frozen in time.
Hit him like one or the other. I think those are the two only options people would have in that. I don't know. Betsy says she's terrible at friendships. As one of her best friends, I disagree, but people will say that's not a true best friendship or whatever. I don't really care what people think.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, it is. Because
yes, absolutely.
Because I feel like to stay married, you have to be best friends.
That's the way I look at it. You have to really want to be around each other and do all these things.
Even or just romantically angry after a while. That works too.
I feel like to even get to marriage, you have to be best friends. To me personally, for it to last. Like that's wild. Just don't propose marriage to a friend. Get out of here.
No, it has to be a best friend, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
As long as you're not friend zoned.
So does this? Oh, she only loves us both. I'm sorry, Mr. Marvelite. I'm sorry, Mr. Marvelite, because we're gonna mispronounce names. Sorry, on purpose. I Love You, Man is an interesting film because it feels.
Oh, he left, man.
Oh, no.
We still do that. So yay!
So it feels very Judd Apatow, right? To me, it feels like it comes out of the same vein.
It does, yeah.
But it's a director who, you know, I guess he's done a few things. I guess he did the Little Fockers movie, Meet the Fockers, Along Came Polly, Zoolander. So it's definitely, he's got that kind of wacky comedy feel. But the way this movie plays out, with it being Paul Rudd and Jason Segel, it still just kind of feels like it attaches itself to the Apatow world.
It does.
But these were very popular because of Judd and everything he did with those guys in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I think Paul Rudd is a god when it comes to awkward comedy, because I think there's only one other person that can hit that level, and I think it's Kristen Wiig. And I would love to see Paul Rudd and Kristen Wiig in a movie together to see how awkward that could really be. They may have been, but I don't know of it off the top of my head. I always find this, I say this about every comedy we ever review, I find we talk about how funny it is, I find we talk about the jokes or the awkwardness or whatever it is, but I don't know what else to say about them. I love Jon Favreau in this movie. I love seeing him play an asshole. Yeah. Because he's usually a nice guy, or he's just a dude, like he's just, like he is in Marvel. He's just a dude, right? Yes. Are they in a movie together?
They actually were supposed to be in Bridesmaids together, but what's his name? What's his name?
Peter,
Paul Feig or how you want to say his name? He cut him out, so I think he might be a deleted scene. He was supposed to be in that. He's supposed to be like one of her dates going bad or whatever. Oh, really? Kristen Wiig. So he technically was in a film with her.
So
he just got
that
cut.
Scene might be really awkward. I would expect it to be, considering Bridesmaids is one of the most awkward comedies I think ever made.
I love that film. The shitting in the street might be the greatest scene I've ever seen in my life. But yeah.
Oh, you're just gonna do it. Oh, she's doing it. The scene before that,
it's like go around.
I love Melissa McCarthy, and I love Melissa McCarthy. Look away. Yeah. I love that whole thing. So for me, I like awkward comedy because it's meant to push you over the line in ways that normal comedies don't. And making something both a romantic comedy and an awkward comedy is a tricky thing. Like it's not an easy balance, because you want to get all those romantic tropes, but you still want to make it kind of weird or gross, or like the puking scene, right? When he pukes on the guy. On
Jon Favreau? Yeah.
Right.
I think I go too close to the chest with these movies, which is why I kind of like to avoid them. Because in all honesty, a lot of times I am super awkward. That's why I love TikTok. It's short form. I can like delete and redo it and everything else, because I'll be sitting there going, what the heck was I saying? But in real life, it gets really awkward. Like, that's why I'm terrible to play Fortnite with. Like stuff where you're like I don't talk trash. Like,
no, I get that. Nope. You're just like, let's just play. Is it cool if we just play?
I'll forget. Let's have fun.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that was
Fortnite stupid. Either. It's very chaotic. My anxiety can't take Fortnite.
Shooters in general are pretty chaotic like that.
I'm like, what guns do I grab? Is it a pack? What do I do? Like, it's too much for me. My brain can't take it. Should we vote? Should we rank?
We can. Speaking of which, before we do, I want to put out another huge shout out to Aina, or her name is Hannah, but Aina is her name. 2 Ainas if you find her on Discord with us, which of course always join the Real Study Discord. She has done so much behind the scenes that you guys never get to see, but yet you see all the time without even knowing it. All of the news she puts together, all of the banners for YouTube. If you're hearing us through a podcast, it's 100% because Aina put it up for us. She is tireless. Amazing. She's working her butt off, and she's amazing, and she deserves constant shout-outs. So I want to make sure to do that.
And she always comes up with like new ideas or just thinking about new ways to make things easier and more accessible for people. So she's amazing. I had a question, and she just popped up with stuff. She's like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I was like, God damn it, thank you. So she's amazing. Yes,
agreed. And she's our resident Canadian, the only Canadian in the Real Study, but it's important.
Not for long though. We're going to get more. That's fine.
We will hopefully get tons more. Now, we do have some viewers and listeners in Canada, and we appreciate you as well, but that's true with all of our Real students. That said, we will go ahead and rate this, but that was kind of what led me to this. Aina did just come up with the Letterboxd for the Real Study, so if you do go on Letterboxd, you can see every movie we've ever done, rated, with an average score for all of what we've said as a panel, so it's kind of what the Real Study thinks of the movie. Think of us
Yes.
like Rotten Tomatoes Junior, if you will. We'll take
Like
that
the
status.
Council of Real Study.
There you
Yeah.
go. Exactly. That said, let's rate it. Let's go in the same order. Mr. Marvelite, what do you rate I Love You, Man?
Let me ask: is there anything changed with the rating scale? Like, are we?
Nope.
We're still doing a 1 to 10.
We don't do
kid
12-year-olds animiore.
if-
We don't do the
if
kid
it's
thing anymore.
We've
But
grown from that. We've gotten a little old.
yeah,
moving
we're a little
around.
older. Now it's what your 18-year-old self would. No, I'm just playing. No, it's not.
Yeah, because I'm so far removed from my 12-year-old, I don't even know if we talk
Yeah.
anymore.
We just
But
phase that out naturally. It just kind of phased itself out, so it's fine. We just do 1 to
It's fair
10.
if
What's
you
your
wanna
what's your
use it.
one? What's your
we're just keeping the inner child deep down again.
yes?
Just okay.
Where it
Lock it further
belongs.
away.
Yes.
Yes, where it belongs. Just turn it off like a light switch. Yeah. So yeah, I would say for this film, because it's not my
Mhm.
my cup of tea when it comes to comedies. Like awkward comedies just make me have anxiety. I'd still probably give this about a 7. It's a fun film. It's got a lot of good characters. I love that Lou Ferrigno, we're gonna call him
Ferrigino.
by his name. Like I like his interaction, even as little as it was, because it was a little bit different than I'm used to. I just loved how he's like at the end of it, he's like, I put him in a sleepy hold. Like, it's just like he had fun, just I think being himself.
I think Lou Ferrigno is a really good
yeah,
actor. though.
I'd say
I
a
think he's a
7.
solid actor. Anything I've seen him
yeah.
in is like being himself, or he just in stuff. I'm like, I
Yeah.
do more stuff. Like I thoroughly enjoy you, sir. Like please do more stuff.
Lala.
I'll give it, because I don't want to be like Mr. Marvelite, so I'm gonna give it a 7.5. Because I like like awkward comedies. No, I will give it a 7.5 though, because it's still like a watchable film to me. Like I can't go back and watch it. But again, I probably seen this in 2009, and then this is my first time seeing it again. Like
Okay.
and maybe like some scenes in between that and then and now, but it's not something that I'm like, I gotta watch I Love You, Man. Like that's like it's not one of those films for me. So 7.5.
All right. I've seen this movie dozens of times because I love it too much. So this is gonna get an 8.5 from me.
Okay, 8.5.
I don't normally do halves, weirdly, but 8.5. I don't want to give it a 9 because I don't know. I just don't. It's an 8.5. We're going to call it good. I do believe, though, that Paul Rudd's character in this movie is more closely related to a real human I've met in real life than in most other comedies.
No, facts.
Right? The fact that he's
I 100% agree.
and socially distant from people, but you're trying hard.
Yeah.
Like try hard people are real.
Like I said, I related really hard to this. Just somebody that's like that always takes care of other people, don't really like look to take care of themselves or even worry about people helping them, but until it becomes a thing and you kind of like boil over. I was like, he's me. I was like, that's me, man.
Right.
That's me.
That said, why don't we put Law on the spot here, and why don't we go ahead and move on to the real news?
Now it's time for the real news.
You nailed it. I'm an idiot. We're doing the pre-review. It's been a bad night for MrSniDBitS because of all the problems. I'm going to hit this one, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Biggie's pre-review brought to you by The Real Study, Sunday nights, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific.
Welcome to Biggie.
So, since Biggie can't do the pre-review, we will be doing the pre-review, and this will be Law doing the pre-review, so I'm going to give you guys all the BlackGirlMarvel and no one else. So.
So can I go? You tell me when to go. Okay, sweet. I see myself. Okay, so just to let you know, guys, all of these movies come out May 26th, but some of them are also on limited release in theater, and I will let you know where you can find them. I think one I don't know yet because it didn't say, but I will let you know. So the first film we got is Kandahar. It stars Gerard Butler. He plays a CIA operative who, along with his translator, they expose a covert mission in Afghanistan, and now they have to flee from special forces. This seems to be a very like Gerard Butler-y film where it's like very high octane, high intense. He's doing his Gerard Butler thing. I don't know how else to explain this. Also, this is not going to be as cute as or as professional as Biggie's, but you're going to get stuff. Next up, we have The Wrath of Becky. So, for anybody that know, also I believe that Kandahar is rated R, so just wanted to let you guys know that, as well as Becky. Becky is rated R as well. This, I believe, this film is a limited release, whereas Kandahar is a theater release. The Wrath of Becky is actually a sequel of a 2020 film called Becky, so you might want to watch Becky first, then come to The Wrath of Becky. Some real messed up stuff happens to Becky, but in The Wrath of Becky, it's essentially, I'm not even gonna tell you what happens. It's literally like a rated R John Wick for teenagers. So she is living with this lady, some stuff goes down, and they hurt/take her dog, and she goes on revenge to go get her dog back.
Is Lulu Wilson like Owen Wilson's daughter?
Lulu Wilson, I was actually thinking that, but one of my favorite actors is in this film, and that is Seann William Scott. I'm a huge fan of Seann William Scott. I think he's amazing, and I know she is not related to any of the Wilson clan, from what I can tell.
Copy that.
Yeah, but this film is literally like a revenge film, and from the trailer, it looks very like kind of like slapsticky and fun. She's kind of sadistic, and I kind of dig it. It makes me want to watch the first film. But this is limited release. It's also rated R. Next film is called Hurt. You Hurt My Feelings. This is an A24 film. It is coming soon. I'm not sure if it's still May 26th, and it's rated R as well. You Hurt My Feelings stars Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she plays a novelist who, after overhearing what her husband actually thinks of her novel, goes into a downward spiral, and their marriage is in question, because now she's really thinking like, can I believe everything that he has said to me if he's been lying about my work this entire time? It looks like a very Julia Louis-Dreyfus like type of comedy and driven type of plot. From the trailer, it seems like everybody is like, life is very terrible, get a grip, and she just can't get a grip. So this film seems to be right in line with the A24 kookiness, and I'm quite here for it. Next film is Influencer. Influencer stars an actress named Cassandra Naud, I believe you pronounce her last name. So this film is very much a take on social media and influencers. This Cassandra's character goes on a trip to Thailand, and she's vlogging the entire way, and she meets a girl who might have some darker intentions. It's really giving single white female, but in Thailand is what it's giving. This film also comes out May 26th. I believe it's rated R, but you could find this on Shudder on AMC Plus. It's very, limited, but you can find it on AMC Plus on Shudder. Next film, everybody knows, The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid. This film is PG. If you didn't know, it's Disney. Come on. They're usually RPG unless it's Marvel. This stars Halle Bailey and Melissa McCarthy. We all know about this film. Theatrical release. It's a girl longing to stretch her legs, and she makes a terrible deal, but she finds some love. We all know what it is. It's just a live action version. It also stars Awkwafina as Scuttle, which she was super excited to be Scuttle in this film. I'm excited to see this film because not only does Halle Bailey have a beautiful voice, but she's also a beautiful actress. And I'm just excited to see what little twists and turns, because Disney live action always has a tendency to drop a little new stuff in there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the live action Lion King, but kind of don't at the same time, because that was terrible. Next film we have is our last film is The Machine. This is also rated R, comes out May 26th in theaters. I am going to mess up his last name. Is it Brett Kirschner or Kirsch? I cannot pronounce his last name. The Machine stars Brett Kirschner, Mark Hamill, and it's essentially a true story. Brett Kirschner is if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, somebody let me know. He is a comedian who, while doing stand-up, he told a story about like when he was like in his 20s in Russia and some mishaps he had, and they decided to make a movie about it. And this movie takes place 20 years after, where he wronged some Russians and now they're coming back for revenge. From the trailer, Mark Hamill seems to just be in his bag. He plays Kirshner's father, and it's quite hilarious, if I may say so myself. And in Bert Kirshner fashion, he takes off his shirt somewhere throughout the film, and it's pretty amazing. As I said, all these films come out May 26th, except for the A24. That one is coming soon. And Becky is limited release and an influencer you can find on Shudder on AMC Plus. That is the pre-review.
Thank you, BlackGirlMarvel. As always, you are amazing, and we really do appreciate that. That said, we are going to move on to the next film in our lineup tonight. It is the worst worst real study ever done, but we're here for it. We're still doing it, so we don't.
But I also feel like it's the best in the same way.
That's what Batsy was
I
saying.
just love that I bring the best out of everybody.
She's like, "This is hilarious. Tony. It's a shit show, but it's hilarious."
I think it's great.
It is.
It's real life. It's the real study.
I know. I just always prided myself on the togetherness. That said, moving to the movie called The Fundamentals of Caring, and this is a Netflix film released in 2016, starring Paul Rudd, go figure, as well as Selena Gomez, and I don't remember the kid's name that plays alongside them. I'm terrible.
His name is Robert
something.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm like looking it up right now. Craig Roberts. Sorry.
Craig Roberts. That's right. So, this is essentially a story about a man who has had a hard life with some, loss as well as divorce, and he decides to go ahead and become a caregiver. He ends up becoming a caregiver for a kid who has muscular dystrophy, and this kid is not your normal kid, no matter whether he has muscular dystrophy or not. He's kind of a shit and kind of an ass, and things go from there. I'm not going to go too much because I want them to be able to talk about it, but Lala, you had said you'd seen this one before. Me and MrMarvelite had not. When did you catch this one? Was it when it came out, or?
Yeah, when it came out. I was like, ooh, Paul Rudd. And then I was like, Selena Gomez. And then I was like, and then I watched it. Just being very honest. Mind you, I watched all of Wizards of Waverly Place and the movie, so it's like, it's the thing. But still, I was just kind of like, okay. But I watched it and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that this film was, I like films that are kind of like, they feel independent-y, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. They feel like, it was like, Sam Raimi and crew kind of, did this with just a little bit of better budget. You know what I mean? Like, so I thought it's a nice story. It's a little mystery to it because they keep alluding to this man's like child and the death of his child, but you really don't find out until like pretty much the end of the movie, how his child passed away. And I have an issue with the muscular dystrophies. What's his name? I don't know his character's name. What's his Trevor? Yeah, I have an issue with Trevor's mom because once you find out how the son died, her little conversation in the kitchen was unnecessary. And I just kind of like wanted to punch her in the face. I get it. I'm not a parent, but I do have one. So I do get it. But I was just like, that's weird because he didn't have that's weird. Like, what you talk about promises? Like, what do you mean? You don't know anything about my life, type of thing. But I thought this film was nicely done. There are some things that are meh for me, and that's Selena Gomez being like the trope of like, I'm a 21-year-old out here living my life, and I wear leather jackets and boots, and I smoke, and nobody can tell me what to do, and I say fuck whenever I want to and do things. It was just her character just felt very tropey.
Have you met 21-year-olds?
Everything that she did. I mean, I used to be one, and I was nothing like that. No, I know, but I also get that. But also, it would be nice if you didn't show a 21-year-old like that all the time, because not all of them are like that. Even if they do leave home and leave a note for their parents, like they're not all like very much like I'm tough and I'm brash and all of them aren't like that. So it's just, to me, that's a trope that like is very old to me. But overall, I thought it had a lot of heart. Paul Rudd, to me, is it's an actor who I feel all of them can't do this. He can go from like silly comedy to being very like pull at your heartstrings. And a lot of comedic actors can't do that. Sometimes they can only do comedy. Sometimes people can only do drama. But the fact that he can go back and forth, I think is like a really good testament to like just his acting ability. And the guy that plays Craig Roberts, who plays Trevor, I thought he was great. Because I felt like I don't know anybody with Duchenne's, I believe it's called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I've never met anyone, but I've seen the condition before, and I felt like he nailed it. I also felt like he nailed just like, I'm a regular person, you know, just like a regular person. And like the fact that everyone tries to kind of like not treat him like a regular person, and his mom kind of coddles him, and she like, I understand she wants him to live, but like, is it really living if all I do is the same thing every single day of my life? I would actually
make an argument that Trevor is the reason he's stuck there, because if he had spoken up, I'm sure his mom would be fine with him trying stuff, but he seems very, very happy with just being stuck where he is, because he's got this like entitlement.
But I feel like he doesn't even look happy, but she's a mom that works. Oh, sure. So I don't really fault her for not seeing it.
Right. Single mom is a very difficult thing.
Right. That's a very difficult thing. And I don't fault her for seeing it.
Disabled kid.
Right. And she now has to trust people to come in and make sure that her kid don't die by the time she gets home from work. So like, I don't fault her 100%, but as a parent, like, you should kind of still see that, like, take your kid outside, like maybe walk down the street, like get some fresh air, like, you know, push him out of the comfort zone of doing this thing like every single day. And I understand it's a routine has kept him alive, so she's like, it's kept him alive, we're going to keep doing it. But it's just like, but I overall I love the film. I thought it was great. So,
awesome. MrMarvelite.
To just kind of piggyback on that last statement, because if I don't talk about something she already said,
I'm used to it. Go ahead.
But like the I think the whole idea was he wore her down. Like there was he was so stubborn. There was, and you have to get like I can just say this as a parent right now, you pick your battles sometimes. You just have to kind of like concede that you're not going to win. And so like I get that level of it. There were a couple things, and I'm gonna start off with the things that I did not like, and then I want to talk about what I did like about the film. The boy meeting his father, that was kind of a throwaway scene. They didn't really go too in depth, and I felt like they rushed like that situation to going to the pit, and then all of a sudden there's a baby, and then everybody's okay with each other again. Like, there were some moments where I feel like they didn't flesh things out. I completely agree with Law that the entire, like the mother, like having the conversation and then like you finding out what happened to the kid, like that was of no fault of his. I also felt like the wife was a throwaway character as well, because all that was like even to the point of where it's like, you have the guy trying to serve the court order once. And then, of course, then there's a discussion, and it's just actually Cash. It's the dad.
Well,
like
the guy
I kind of felt like
court order twice.
Right, he drove away from the first time,
and the next time the guy's
and then the second time he was banging on the door. But that I felt like that wasn't established enough for that to be like a consistent threat. Like I was waiting for there to be some situation where they were going to be trouble. Like I kept thinking every time they picked up a hitchhiker, like this is the one that's going to like rob from them.
I get that too.
There was no real, I think, consequence for anything that happened throughout the film. There was no risk of human error in anything. Like the closest we got was him running around looking for the medication, but that was all of a joke in itself. I will say beyond that, it reminded Bobby. What's his name now? The guy who played Cash. Cannavale, yeah. I wanted to butcher his name again, but thank you for that. But like him, and then you have I mean, like we go back to like I Love You Man, where you have like Lou Ferrigno, you had J.K. Simmons, you had like Jon Favreau. Like my mindset of like it always runs into all these characters that kind of like weave back and forth with each other, whether it's in Marvel movies or whatnot. I liked Paul Rudd's humor more in this film than with the awkward humor in the previous film. I think dark humor works really well for him because maybe it's because you just expect the awkward stuff. But I liked how he kind of like there was like this passingly thing, like the kid's like, did you intentionally put my waffles and my sausage like this? He's like, yeah. And he walks away and the kid smiles. Like those kind of like subtle things.
For those of you at home, he asked if he put his sausages like 2 giant balls and a small penis. But I just wanted to be clear on
thank
that.
you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I appreciate you
I'd put that out there. The vulgarity in this movie is extreme. There's not a small.
I love it though.
Yeah, I do too.
I love it to pieces because that's life. There's vulgarity in life.
So for a short period of time, a couple of years, I worked as a caregiver, both from the job side, but also for a little while just in the caregiving side. And so I have a little tiny bit of experience with this, not to this degree or with somebody with muscular dystrophy, but I've worked with people with cerebral palsy and others as well. And there is something about giving somebody dignity and giving them a life. And so I appreciate Paul Rudd's character for being like, yo, this is not like he's literally living his life through television. Not even like through social media and friends and even playing video games or anything, just absorbing television and watching the, cute girls that he's, and then keeping track of all of his bad American sideshows, if you will. So I appreciate that this movie is driving that home and is giving a message for people with disabilities that don't get seen as often. So I really do like that part. I don't know. For me, honestly, this is going to be a bold statement, but this is one of the best crafted scripts I've watched in a long time. I love the beats and the little bit of the wife enough for me to understand he doesn't want to get divorced, enough for me to understand that this is his process as much as it's Trevor's process, right? Ben and Trevor are both going through this together, and it's about both of their inevitable ends. I bawled. This movie is a dramedy to its core because I laughed my ass off for the first half. And then the kids stuff just destroys me because I have kids, and it's just kind of even if you don't, you can empathize, but it still it hits you. And then the end, I'm like crying my eyes out. And if you haven't seen the movie, this is a huge spoiler, but they claim at the very end that the kid dies from muscular dystrophy, and of course, he was just faking it with his new caregiver. And that's I'm sitting there crying, and I'm like.
You sons of bitches.
I'm sorry. Let me give you the correct, finger. The humor that they had about disabilities is something I've also encountered a lot. People are willing to joke because it's kind of a safe mechanism and it helps them deal. So I don't know. I found this movie to be a breath of fresh air, but not the movie I expected. I'm sitting here going, I'm going to watch a Paul Rudd movie. I'm going to laugh a little bit, and we're going to talk about this. And I turned the movie off at 20 minutes to the end and was like, Bats, you're watching this movie with me, and we started it over and watched it again. So, and she felt the same way. I think her and I have one of the things that keeps us together is we have this similar feeling about a lot of films. So, anyway, just
I mean, the way I looked at it, I was like, every person that was in that van had daddy issues in some type of way. So because with the pregnant woman, you didn't see the daddy. She was going to her mom. I'm assuming he's out of the picture. Selena Gomez character Dot had issues with her father. Like they just couldn't find the connection. Trevor's father didn't want him.
Right. And
that was another thing too. There was a missed opportunity with him confronting his mom about the letters. Like, you just writing letters from this man to me and they're fake. Like, why would you, if he's a dick, let him be a dick. If he didn't want me, let him not want me. Like, don't build him up to be something in my life that he's not. Like, that's wild. And they never really like talked about that. It just they kind of like glossed over that. And then Ben had issues because he is a father, right? So it was just like everybody had like father issues in like some way. It's in some way. I will say though, finding out that you are the cause of your child's death is a heart.
Was it him
breaker.
Or was it her? Because I couldn't tell.
Well,
I saw a black jacket, and the obviously
it seems like it was him, because I'm assuming it's him because
it's like he blames himself.
He blames himself, and it seems like I won't say she blames him, but she might, because like a lot of things, like people get divorced a lot when their kid dies,
right.
And or something happens to the kid, people do get divorced for that, and she's the one serving him divorce papers. So I felt like she might have blamed him or put some blame on him. I do agree with you,
He blamed
SniDBitS,
himself so much that she was like,
that he fell into it. She's like, I'm right, and she's done. Like,
right.
It could be like either one.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. We didn't need to see her at all. The fact that, or is it, or was it? No.
Marvelite is the one that said it, yeah.
My bad. No. I agree. I agree with Miss Marvelite. Like I didn't need to physically see her because the process server getting him papers spoke volumes enough for me. So like for me, at like instead of that scene where like he goes and he meets her, because I was just like, who is this random woman? And I was like, oh yeah, he's oh yeah, like it could have been a thing where like the person was like knocking at his door again, and he opened it, finally like letting this person in, signing the papers and giving it back
I
to
disagree.
him. Like, because I don't need to see her because she hasn't spoken a word. There's nothing. I don't need to see him.
That's the thing. That's okay. Now you made me disagree with you. Like, thank you for that. No, honestly, yeah, because like, okay, so she's not throwaway because in a sense it wasn't even about her. It's the perspective from him. Right. He has to come to terms with it. If he would have just let the processor give him the thing, he still has to go to court. Right. Basically, it's just him taking responsibility. Right. But for him to show up at the end and give her the papers, it's a saying of, I'm not going to fight this. I'm able to move on. Right. This is not being forced upon me.
Helping a kid with a disability pee into a giant pit repaired my life, and I'm good to go.
No, I get that, but here's the thing. Maybe to me that scene would have hit more if we saw them somewhere, and if we saw her somewhere in the film. If we could, because I know it's not about her, but it kind of is for him. So his emotional attachment to her I don't feel it in the film. So him giving her papers does nothing for me. But you know who I see more in the film than her? The process server. So,
but that's the thing, because it's not about her. So her appearance was more of a vehicle for his awareness. That's all it was.
I get it, but for me, I don't need to see. He has a better relationship for me with the process server than he does with his wife. So for him to open up the door or not to run away if they cornered him, that would have felt more powerful for me than him just walking up to her randomly and giving her some papers and her looking up and him being like, and walking away. Like, that's just me. Like, I would have just like, because he kept ducking and dodging this processor. If he was ducking and dodging,
the processor is the agent of her, because she's finally said, I'm tired of giving you an opportunity to come to terms on your own.
But
I'm sending someone to do it.
But we don't ever see her. Like, that's my biggest thing. Well, we don't ever see her.
I don't know. For me, we see her enough. We see her just a little bit.
I don't know.
That's all we need.
Because I don't know. To me, that lost a little bit of oomph. That lost everybody's plot point for the most part to get you to the next thing. But like, just for me personally, it just wasn't enough oomph. It just wasn't enough oomph for me to like really care that he walked up on her, because she's not like, I know it's about him, but it's just like, maybe if they would have showed her possibly trying to serve him papers or something, and then eventually that's the scene we see at the end. To me,
you mean like her knocking on his door and putting the papers under the door?
One time.
I don't know. I feel like it's an hour and 37 minutes, and one of your biggest complaints, Law, is that movies tend to, right here they just kind of dialed it in, like, here's all you need, let's move to the next thing.
But this is one of those moments where maybe another 10, 15, maybe another 10 minutes, you could have just added some more filler stuff in there just to like flesh out a story.
But what's kind of interesting, like,
but it's just
but think of it this way, like, this was based off of a book, and I imagine, like, I didn't go any further, like, if it was based off of a true story.
It's based off of a book.
Think of it this way, like, it felt more real for me because it didn't have like a nice little bow on it. It kind of it felt more real because it's simple. Like, I'll be honest with you, the knowing that he was dealing with the loss of his son as a dad broke me enough. And then at the same time, like, when you finally come to terms with what's going on, I was actually more mad at him at the end, because I'm sitting there going like, what dad is going to turn his back to his kid to bring, like, I'm sorry, I'm overprotective. Like, my kid, if he gets a bag from the car, I make him go in front of me. Like, there are some things
about that too.
I'm like, what in the world are you doing?
They always walk in front of me. They don't walk behind me. They walk.
Yeah, like there were things that didn't make sense, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so yeah, life is messy. It's not going to be this overly dramatized, story of what's going on. you had just enough to get the idea of what it was, but that was just the side thing. Like, you already knew his life was a mess. You already knew that he was struggling, and it took, and I think it was more impactful for them at that moment with the boy, where the kid goes, I'm not going to fix you. Like, you helping me is not going to fix you, was more, and I think more impactful and meant more, because her appearance just gave you enough to know his life is a mess, and he didn't respond well to the loss of his son, and he's not coping, regardless of how it doesn't really look very well presented. It's life, and life is like that sometimes.
I would argue that the moment when he says, I'm not going to fix you, because you can take that scene kind of two ways. I would argue that what Ben's character says of, I lost my son, you can't fix me, is true. I don't think he was ever looking for anything from this kid. He just happened to get it from this kid, and they got a bond that felt more like a parental relationship, mostly because this kid's dad had just walked the fuck out. Right. Which that scene, I was angry. I was yelling at the TV when he offered the money to him. I'm like, dude, like, it's not even.
He was like, I got like
$160. It's literally that he pulled out his wallet that was the most insulting part. Not even.
Bro, even if you wanted to give me money, we walked in. Your name is plastered everywhere. Right. We walk into your office. You own this place. Right. You probably own more than one of these places. You have awards everywhere, and you pull out your wallet for a measly $160. Even though I can't be bought, but still, you give me what you have on you.
Right.
What are
did anybody else have the problem, like the question in their head of, like, what did his mother see in this guy in the first place to even procreate? Like,
he was from overseas.
She's foreign. He's American.
Better looking.
The moment he opened his mouth, and I'm sitting there going,
he's probably. But I just want to comment on the thing. So for me, what happened was that he didn't really park the car. He put the car in neutral, and then he put the brake on. He messed up, and that's why the car drifted backwards, because he didn't park it. It didn't look like he put
pull the brake high enough, and it was in neutral.
Yeah, like and so like
he should have left it in gear, because that's what.
Yeah, he should have left it in gear.
Dumbass.
And
that's number one.
He didn't.
And then he didn't.
Because I was thinking about it when I watched.
A lot of people with manuals do that because it saves on the transmission.
When I was because my car is like that, and I'm not on a hill or anything like that. But when I park, I was like, my drive is back and my park is all the way up. I was like, he's not paying attention. I was like, and then I was like, he's not paying attention, and I was like, oh, so he inadvertently killed his own child, and that's probably something he'll never get over, but he might be able
helping that baby come into the world definitely gave him some.
I'm sure that gave him some, right?
Because it
helped him a little bit. Yeah. He was able to process it for sure.
Now, was he perfect? No, but he even said that, and it's true. I lost my dad in 2018. I'm never going to be the person I was before my dad died, and it's just the reality of when you lose somebody. It's just the way it is. And that's something that I've learned, that if I'm ever going to tell anybody advice for when you lose somebody, realize that it doesn't go away. Like, it'll sneak up on you.
And also, it's like levels too, because it's like, how did you lose that person? Right. Did you lose that person because of old age, or were you complicit in how? Because he's complicit in how his son died, and that's like a weight that a lot of people don't carry and can't carry. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was just still able to function, limited as it was,
getting a job
speaks volumes. You know what I mean? Like, that speaks volumes in itself, and like, it's. I don't know, like,
he was cracked, but not broken. Maybe would have been.
I enjoyed this film, but again, there are things that like I wish I could have cried at this film. I wish I could have, and there are things that, for me personally, if they changed or maybe added more weight to, I could have probably felt more emotionally attached to it. I still enjoyed the film. I thought the humor was great. I just wish I could have cried, because I feel like this is one of those films that could sneak up on you. I just didn't get snuck up on.
I didn't even like, even when I made the promo, I didn't like really watch the trailer. I just kind of muted it and picked out scenes that had Paul Rudd in them. And I was like, oh, that cow's got to be important somehow, and it is to a degree. Which that scene, anyway. But it's not a movie I knew anything about, so I just walked in just going, oh, this is going to be a Paul Rudd comedy. I did not think there was a dramatic aspect to this film.
Right.
And so the dramatic aspect just hit me upside the head. And I was like, oh, shit, okay, this is the kind of movie I'm going to watch today. Okay, that's thanks, Ray. Thanks for the suggestion for the movie that ripped my heart out. She did suggest this one, right? I'm not crazy.
I believe so, because I was like, because the movies we had originally, I was like, because 40-Year-Old Virgin for me, it ain't really a Paul Rudd film. It's a Steve Carell film.
Now the other one I wanted was Wanderlust. That is another
I wanted
great
that too,
awkward comedy,
but it's not
he's done.
Streaming anywhere.
It's not, but that would have been absolutely my first choice.
Yeah, that would have been a solid choice.
Weirdly, some of the same actors in Wanderlust as in I Love You Man. There's a couple crossovers, but also a great weird Jordan Peele in that movie. Well, okay, so we have just enough time to go ahead and move to Ant-Man and the Wasp. Why don't we go ahead and rate this film? And we're going to, of course, have a shorter evening. No, don't be sorry for suggesting. I love this movie. In fact, why don't I just go ahead and start? I am going to rate this a 10. This has made my list of great films. I will suggest this film if people want a good dramedy. So that's me. 10, 10, 10. Mr. Marvelite.
I would give this probably an 8.5. Like there were a couple things that I, had quarrels with. I mean, we talked about it here. But I love this a lot more than I did. I Love You, Man. And I thought that kid was great. I want to see more with that kid. Like I kind of liked that interaction. And it's funny. Like I kind of like Selena Gomez in this film because it was a little bit different for her. And it seems like whenever you get her in a car with another older guy, like I kind of enjoy it because like I liked her with Ethan Hawke in the other car, whatever the movie was.
It's like drive fast.
So I think it was like drive faster. I don't know.
Drive.
Car, wheel turn.
Cars go faster.
So
passenger. Yeah. I don't know. No, that's a crisp. That's a
Need for Speed.
Hey, I like Need for Speed, but we won't go into that.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right. Well, that said,
that's hilarious.
We are going to move on to our final film of the evening.
Can I rate?
Oh no!
Can I rate?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead. That was. See, I'm just gonna keep making mistakes.
Ouch!
I'm literally gonna just.
Gosh!
I gotta keep making mistakes.
Anywho.
Get away! Thank you.
Get away. Everything we said was close.
None of that was close. None of that was close.
It was so close.
I love that, but none of it was close.
Cars.
Ray said, "Did you say a 10? Perfect." Okay. I personally will give this film an 8, even though there are moments where I was like, because I've seen it before, so I already knew what to expect. So this was just me kind of like just getting more deeper into the story or anything like that to kind of like pick it apart, because what's the point of reviewing a movie if you're not gonna pick it apart just a little bit? There were moments that I would have just changed differently just so it could just touch me a little bit more in the feels, because I like to cry, you know what I mean? I like to shed a tear for a movie or two. I'll give it an 8. It's still a solid film. I can still see myself watching it again. The performances from everybody was really good. Again, I've watched all of Wizards of Waverly Place in the movie. I enjoy Selena Gomez, but I'm just being honest. When I first saw this, I was like, ugh, why we keep trying to turn her into a movie star? I was like, oh my God. But I do understand that she was trying at that time, was probably trying to shed a Disney image.
Oh yeah, no, she had already done Spring Breakers, and then she turned around and did this and Get Away.
Yeah, like she's trying to shake that image, and she's trying to branch out, like
almost,
her music.
I mean, the script literally kind of almost helps her say that, like, I'm 21. You know, she even like kind of says it, like, if you're into,
for sure,
if you're into that, go on, creep, like, you know.
Exactly, pervert actually.
Pervert.
So pervert. So like I enjoyed it, but I give it an 8 because I think it's a good film. I think everybody should watch it if you haven't. I think it's just a nice film because it is like literally the fundamentals of caring. And I think that was my point I wanted to make, and I forgot, because Mr. Marvelite said that like there was like no real stakes. I actually liked that in this film. I liked it, like Trevor didn't get sick along the way. I'm happy that the mother didn't get proved right, because the fundamentals of caring was like what this whole movie was about, which is people caring about people
on a real
and
level,
people you don't even know, like on a real level, right? And I dig that. So 8. But go ahead.
Can I just say I love there's one scene that I actually love probably more than a lot of the other stuff.
I think I know.
When Paul Rudd is saying goodbye to Selena Gomez.
I knew you were gonna bring
his character.
that scene too.
And they're talking about the perverts. He's like, yeah, we're all connected. The dad
and then it pans over to the dad and he's
Cash
like,
is like yeah. No,
yeah.
that's good stuff.
That was probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
I like it.
That and the bovine.
Yeah, no, the chair, like
I just love that Trevor never
slipping.
I love that Trevor never lets him get away with anything. He was just like, "Who are you calling right now?"
Yeah,
like,
no, that's such a great line.
It's like, sir, let me do this for you. Like, stop. But go ahead.
It did take less than 40 seconds for them to make him take that chair right back down the stairs. I love that's so good. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
So moving on, we are going to be talking about the latest streaming installment of the MCU, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This is, of course, the third installation, the final trilogy portion of the Ant-Man films, but is also, of course, smack dab right in the middle of Phase 5, which, of course, MrMarvelite will have plenty to say about this film, I promise. That's why we bring on our resident Marvel specialist. That said, well, no, I'm not saying you're not. They're both Marvel specialists. But we bring him on. You're here already, but we bring him on specifically. So that said,
it's just the wording hurt. That's all. But go ahead.
Not the one of the premier Marvel
the supporting specialist to the resident specialist.
MrSniDBitS is going to screw up as much as he can tonight. So he's
so excited to have you here.
Just
Tony.
bear with it.
So excited.
He said how good I looked, and it's thrown me off. My whole mojo has been.
He's like he's so flabbergasted.
I'm in my own head. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this movie. Let's see. I had both of you go first. I guess it'll be me since there's only 3 of us.
Yay!
So I, of course, don't go to the theater still. So whenever I watch these movies, it's 2, 3, in this case, almost 3 months later because they postponed because they were trying to make a little more cash on the streaming side once it hit, which was the first time they had done this with a movie since Black Widow, since I think, something like that. Doesn't matter to me. I'm still okay to wait. The problem is this movie had the fans more split than most of the movies have yet.
My God,
and I was like, okay, I got to see why. And so I go into it, and I'll be honest, I think that Ant-Man and the Wasp is one of the worst Marvel movies yet. It was very boring for me, very dry. I didn't like it very much. And not even the comedy. It just felt like a rehashing of Ant-Man, which was a good movie. Not my favorite, but still like middle upper tier MCU. So for this one, I'm sitting here going, I don't even know what to expect. Everybody's split on it. I'm split on the Ant-Man trilogy. I know people are on Marvel burnout really bad. My wife won't even watch them anymore because she's like, I need a break. And I'm like, hey, I get that. Not everybody has the stamina. I liked this movie. I liked it way more than I thought I would. I got misty during this movie. I actually cried a little bit.
Okay, misty?
I did, a little bit. But again, it's the dad thing. Being a dad for almost 5 years, whenever there's a dad trope now, I'm just like, oh, dad, oh, God. So when they were like, for Cassie, right? And all of the Scotts were like, for Cassie. I was like, yes, Scott, you're amazing. I don't care if it's cheesy. You can get me with cheesy. You can get me with a little corny, and get me weepy that way. I love that they brought MODOK into it. I love that he's the character from the original Ant-Man. I don't care that it's not the original MODOK or anything related to the comics. Were there moments that weren't perfect? Sure. But I don't watch these movies ready to just tear them apart. I watch them to have a good time, and this was a fun, ridiculous adventure. And it's as wacky and weird as it needs to be. It needs to be weird, and I'm okay with retconning Janet's story. They already didn't tell Janet Van Dyne's story anyway. They've completely avoided it in the MCU as it is, so do whatever you want with her story. I'm fine with it. I thought Jonathan Majors is, again, watched Loki. He was amazing as Kang. Watch him in this as Kang, and he brings it, right? The dude can act. We know that.
Facts.
Paul Rudd, awkward and funny, but also this is the movie that sits somewhere between I Love You Man and The Fundamentals of Caring, where he can be just a superhero dude that's fun and like lighthearted, and
then it could get a little serious.
Right, but the dude has range. He can fight and you can believe it. He can joke and be an awkward slap of the face guy, and you can believe like he is like the actor, like the every actor, and yet he's still always Paul Rudd. So I don't understand how he does it. You're born with it, I guess. Maybe it's Paul Rudd, maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know, but I digress. Mr. Marvelite, since you are our guest, I'll let you go next.
Jeff Loveness is the writer for this movie. Is known as a Rick and Morty writer. You could definitely tell that there are definitely those sarcastic humor and kind of like playing off of things. There was something that I really liked about this film because it really fleshed out the quantum realm. We had this nod to it in Quantumania, or I'm sorry, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where you kind of like saw like this distant Chronopolis or whatever it was going to be, in the background. There was a question of kind of like, what did she do for all of that time? She couldn't have been by herself that whole time, could she?
Or just floating. Like that felt weird.
Yeah, and like and like so like you kind of get that concept of all of that. What really put me off from the film was something that Thor: Love and Thunder had, and it's if you don't notice it, it can be a problem at first. Is there's the unreliable narrator. Korg was the narrator in Thor: Love and Thunder. In this one, it's Paul Rudd narrating his like opening and ending of this, which means can we truly believe a lot of what's being presented to us in these films? Because Phase 4 has been doing that to us. And that's where a lot of people are getting the theories of, are we looking at this from a different area of the multiverse? Is this our MCU or is this another situation? I think that's not necessarily the case for this, but I do think it's important for people to realize that this whole thing, the whole Baskin Robbins award, getting the free coffee and being called Spider-Man and stuff, that is all from the perception of Scott Lang. And it's not going to be reliable, just like Korg wasn't reliable. But then when you come down to it, like, there are still things to kind of dissect and to kind of pull from. Was Kang really talking about Thor when he said, "Are you the one with the hammer?" I don't think so. Everybody's gonna. I believe it was. I believe that he may have like come across Steve Rogers at some point and seen him, specifically because the quantum realm suits are very reminiscent to the Ant-Man suits. And so there's that possibility. Now I went the realm of like, could he have killed him in some other universe? I don't necessarily believe that. There was a good story between Scott and Cassie. I thought what was very interesting was they kind of like there was a Hank and Janet conversation, but you had Hope kind of like circling the rim of everything, but it wasn't necessarily a Hope Van Dyne story at all. You only got that one moment where she brings all of the Scott back together. They're able to do this thing together. They need each other, and there's this thing of where they finally tell each other that they love each other. But of course, Kang is menacing. What does the future hold for, the man playing it? I don't know. But it is important to realize that he was a very strong presence in the film. And yeah, Scott may have beaten him, but we are now in a realm with Marvel that we have to be very, understanding of. When you start talking about multiversal characters, we've already seen 2 iterations of Kang. We're going to see a whole lot more, just like we did in the end credits of this movie, and they are going to progressively get worse and more difficult until we get to the big bad.
Yeah,
and
because
I don't think fans that are criticizing this film are really aware of that to get themselves to a point where they can accept. Yeah, he was beaten by Ant-Man, but this is just one version.
We'll get into that in a minute. Lala, go ahead. What did you think of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? What a mouthful.
What I wanted to say was like each iteration of Kang has been warning them about another Kang. Like that's what I was trying to say. I just couldn't. I was like warning. I could not figure out warning. I couldn't figure the word out. But I don't know. I really kind of agree with both of you. There are moments in this that are kind of like, and then there are moments where I'm just like, oh, I enjoy this. But for me, any Marvel film, TV show, I enjoy it for the pureness of it being a Marvel film, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm still going to dissect it from like storytelling and character development and things that I like. But I know that these films are not going to 100% take from the comics. They're going to take what they want and see how it fits within the stories that they're trying to do. So if people keep relying on, well, in the comics,
right,
this ain't the comics. So like I just need people to like
that went out the freaking window already.
You feel me? Like so I just need people to let that go for one. Right. You know what I mean? But for Ant-Man 3, for me, okay, I'm gonna start how MrMarvelite did. I'm gonna do what I didn't like. This is what I didn't like. I don't like that we got a new Cassie. I am not a fan of this actress, and it's possibly because of either direction or the roles that she gets. To me, she's not an effective actress in my opinion. For me, other people might love her, but it's for me. We did not see Cassie grow up. We did not see any of these things. And I don't like tropes where just because my daddy is smart, that means my child is smart. She, for 5 years, did she go to school? She just read journals and she picked this up. Like instead of showing Kang entering the universe, because you was going to go back into the past anyway to show us how they talked, you could have used that chunk of like Janet seeing him land and all that kind of stuff to show us Cassie during those 5 years. Like how she grew up, who was she with? Like all of her family disappeared. Did she really just live in a house by herself and nobody squatted? Nobody tried to break in? Nobody tried like was she?
Her mom was around.
Was she?
Yeah.
When do they say that?
So when he finds her after the blip, she's with her mom. When he comes back,
I'm gonna have to rewatch that because I didn't see anybody
in San Francisco. Like she's not living there by herself. Like they don't show her mom, but it's the same house, so it's implied that she's still living at home with her mom.
But and
if she wasn't, she was at least with her stepdad.
She was with somebody.
Did they get dusted? So neither one of them got dusted.
As far as I don't know, her mom and the
because she would have been displaced or put into foster care if otherwise.
See, but that's what I'm saying. So for me, but again to me, it's not clear cut for me. Even if she was, because she could have been at that house because Scott was somewhere else and she was at the house and everybody could have got dusted. And her mother and her stepfather could have got dusted too, and she just grew up in this house. Like I'm just saying, like I'm going to believe what you guys are saying because for me, I just need more. But again, that could have been explained at the beginning of this film instead of having like Kang land. That Kang landing scene could have still been within the flashback that she did, because it's just one of those things where it's like all of a sudden she's just adept at quantum mechanics. Like it's just, I don't know. There was like some tropes with her character that I just didn't feel.
This is where it's like the comics, and I'm okay with it because in comic books, some character will just be that way, and it's just that it's okay. Like that, and I get it.
And that's great.
But they want to get right to it, and this movie does get right to it. At least
it does get right to it. But again, you know that I like world building. Sure. You know I like character development, character arcs, and for me, because I don't have a physical connection to her, because I love the actress that played the adult one, and she was only in the movies for like 3 minutes. I just love the intense, like how she acted, the intensity of seeing her father, and then you flip to like her being like, well, you wasn't around anyway. I literally got locked in the quantum realm. Like, how are you using this against me? So it went from like her kind of using that, and I understand that throughout the film you see her kind of like regret saying these things to him and being like, I love you, I miss you, like please don't leave, like things like that, because like she's still coming to grips. But like I just wish we had more on her character to see where her mind frame was, because to me it was just like very scattered. I do not like the fact that her mother and her stepfather wasn't even in this for like 5 seconds. That's just me personally. They were in the first 2 movies. I would have liked to just see them in this somehow, somewhere.
There were complaints about his friends as well. Like they're all missing.
I mean, if anything, I would have loved to see Louise. To me, Louise could have narrated this instead of Paul Rudd narrating this, but I also get why they did that. So that's not a big thing.
You want to talk about an unreliable narrator.
That's what I'm saying. That would have been even better, but I get it. Like there are certain things I just didn't like about that. Like I would have preferred more on, I don't know. I just would have preferred it like a little bit more on her and his relationship, and not like this thrown together. Like, let's be angry for a little bit for something I had no control over.
But
it's not like I
teenagers
left you
do
on
that.
purpose.
I don't know. That's just me.
But I get that too, and it's just one of those things where it's like everybody's hiding things about her from her father, and that's just weird to me too. Like, I understand that y'all like are family to her, but again, you calling Janet and Hank grandma and grandpa, that sits weird for me. I was just like, where did that come from? You didn't grow up with them. I don't know. It was just weird to me. That was fun to me. But
think about this. There's at least about 3 to 3.5 years after Endgame where this film falls.
No,
So
I get it. I just don't like
there
it.
There is time to like build up as a family, and
I get it. I do. I get it. I just don't like it because like I know some things are better. Like you don't have to. You don't have to like.
Shot that would have kind of filled the gap.
I would have liked a one shot in between this, just because. Like, even if you didn't put it in a movie, because Marvel stopped doing one shots, which is weird to me. Like, and I'm just like, why are y'all stop doing one shots? One
shots. Because they started doing TV shows instead.
Right. So, like, even if they would have did a one shot like of Cassie, I would have watched that immediately because I would have loved to have seen what she was doing those 5 years, if she was with her mother or her stepfather or both of them, and like maybe she discovered these things when he left, and maybe she was reading, and maybe they helped her. I don't know. I would have preferred a one shot.
A what if would have given you at least she could have done this.
She could have done this.
So you would have been like, okay, well, this Cassie could have done it too. Like, that would have done it.
Even then, it's not hard to fill in the blanks, but it's irritating to fill in the blanks. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's just,
I don't know,
and
so
it's like, she's like, I don't know. She's like, I learned this from my family.
This is the ultimate roller coaster movie in that sense. Like, you don't jump on a roller coaster because you're looking for any substance. You want a thrill, right? And so you jump on, turn, loop, woo, right? That to me is a roller coaster movie. And I think for a roller coaster movie, this movie hits all the paces because they don't hesitate to get right into the action. Weirdness starts to happen. It's a lot for the eyes to take in. I don't know. I think that people forget that these are still just Marvel movies and that they're going to have the same kind of tropey feel because that's what made them Marvel movies in the first place.
Oh,
and you can thank everything from Iron Man to Guardians of the Galaxy for setting that tone. But because those two movies were the most successful to some degree in the in-game, those have set the tone. And if you think they're going to deviate, you're crazy. And I'm not saying you guys are crazy. I'm saying people are crazy for thinking if they're not going to deviate, if they're going to deviate, they're going to take a big risk. Because we've seen what other comic book companies do when they deviate, and it screws everything up really bad. So I think they'll run this formula style into the ground, which I'm okay with, but it will lose steam eventually. And I think some people think it is now. I don't think it is yet. That's just me.
I don't really feel like they're following the same pattern, though. I think with this film and with Thor: Love and Thunder, they allowed for some more flexibility, and some more creative freedom. And I think they took the risk. And in some ways, there are some parts that worked with it. But I also think it's not it. We're talking, like I said before, Jeff Loveness is the one who did this film. Mm-hmm. It's not to not be noted that he's no longer doing Kang Dynasty. They've taken him off. He's no longer writing for for one of the Avengers films. Okay. So, we still got, was it Daniel Cretton or whatever his name was, who did Shang-Chi for Secret Wars. But this writer's off. And I think that kind of bodes well, because I think with Taika Waititi and like you had Chris Hemsworth saying afterward, if we bring Thor back, it needs to be more serious because the jokes were a little bit too much for Love and Thunder. I also think that some of the looseness that we've seen, like even with Multiverse of Madness, like I love all three films. Don't get me wrong, for anybody who's seeing this and wants to clip it and make it sound like I say something different. But I feel like they are the weakest writing films for phase 4 and 5. And if you look at Guardians 3, which I'm not going to say anything specifically about it, and if you look at Wakanda Forever, the strongest thing was consistency through the mm-hmm. sequels or the trilogy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ryan Coogler is a genius and knows Wakanda better than anybody when it comes mm-hmm. to the MCU Wakanda. And the fact that him and the team that he has built to build that world and be faithful to that world and be faithful to continental representation of Africa is what makes that film so iconic. But then you also have Guardians, where James Gunn has poured himself into it, and he's allowed to have been able to tell his story the way he wanted with very little oversight because they just let him do
Guardians not done well though, and we all know that it did.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do feel like some of these writers, Jeff Loveness, and I can't remember the other guy's name, who did Multiverse of Madness, I think they had an idea, but I feel like they were too ambitious and they weren't willing to kind of stick the formula, because I feel like the formula would have made those films better.
So. Yeah, because my thing is this: you can stick with the formula, but like with any inventor, any scientist, anything like that, they have a formula, but they want to build upon it, right? Like that's the whole thing that Shuri was doing in Black Panther. He was like, these work fine. She was like, yeah, but they can work better. And I feel like Marvel needs to like do that. This works fine, but it can still work better. For me, I enjoyed Ant-Man 3. So me just complaining about it, I'm gonna complain about everything, but I did enjoy Ant-Man 3. There were some like I don't like any moment between Cassie and her daddy. Like I don't like any moment. I could not. It didn't feel genuine personally to me.
It's not.
But that's the actors for me. But also it's honestly also it's like the wording too. It's just some words. Like I just don't, because you haven't really established a relationship between them for her to be older. All we saw was like at that one part in Endgame, and then now she's going to jail like him. Like she was doing too much like Scott for me to be like, y'all could have wrote her just a little bit better, just a little bit more like.
But in the Marvel universe, every predecessor, right?
I know. I don't like it though.
Every successor is going to feel,
is
like
going to
Kate
feel
Bishop
like that person, but it's
like
like
like there's so many things.
She kind of don't though.
But
like
she does. She has his attitude. She has his like stoicness.
I mean, he barely spoke for me to know if he got an attitude or not. But I get what you're saying though. Like I get 100% what you're saying.
It doesn't mean they're exactly the same, but you copy
no. But I get
and add a few elements.
And you move on. But again, we also know that the MCU doesn't 100% go by the comics too. So like this could have been a time where you kind of just, I don't know, fleshed out her character a little bit better for me. But personally, I enjoyed the fact that like Hope was getting mad at her mom. Like I love the fact that Janet was getting mad, but it's like, you can't get mad at us if you didn't tell us what was going on. Like you can't get mad. And then it's like, I feel like Cassie is actually going through some actual trauma that they kind of like brush past to like make jokes. Like,
but that's a Marvel movie.
She made a comment about like this dude, like this dude dressed as a bee, like a bumblebee, like was in my room when I was like 5, bro. Like my life ain't normal.
But she did come to terms with that by kicking his ass. So
no, she did. I'm not saying she didn't come to terms, but it's like she still has like some trauma that could have been. Hence the reason why she created the thing in the quantum realm, because she'll never let this happen to her family again. They get lost somewhere she can't find them. I just feel like there were just like
for 5 years again, right?
Right. There were just breath that could have been like. Just some life that could have been breathed into this, that like they kind of just like, nope, suck the air out, put a joke in.
Well, it's like there was like the trope where Cassie, when she was little, said that she wanted to be like her dad's partner. Her dad wanted to be, Hope's partner, and then of course they both disappear. Of course, then she goes in and like how long she's had a suit, or she's like even had access to Pemtech. If she had access to the journals and stuff, what has she been doing with that? Again, it all comes down to the whole unreliable narrator, because if you think about it, the most in-depth conversations that even happen between Janet, Hope, or Hank are when Scott's not present, and it's tonally different than the rest of the film. Because again, I still love this film, but am I really supposed to believe that Hank is this loving and accepting of Scott? Like after like even the stuff that he's done in Ant-Man the Wasp, like, because Scott's still a bumbling kind of like he's a bumbling fool that they kind of look down on it up until that point. And is it really everybody is kissing Scott's butt because he saved the world, or like are we just looking at right a little bit? But like I think it's all from Scott's perspective, and I think that kind of governs that.
That Ant-Man is an unreliable narrator, though, because the things you hear him talk about in his book, the things you hear him talk about on his podcast, the things you hear about him talk about since Endgame are all factual. He doesn't embellish. He doesn't say it was a talking raccoon who had spiny thorns or something weird that wasn't true about Rocket. He's like, yeah, he talked and he's from space. and he's just kind of matter of fact about all of it. So I don't think he's an unreliable narrator. I think
we'll see, because we're going to be able to read that book in September.
That's fair.
I can't wait.
But
I can't wait.
Ultimately, I think that he he's optimistic about everything. So there may be like a naive optimism to his narration, but I don't think it's misguided or untruthful. So I think these things happened, but maybe they happened with a little bit more like, pep.
Like a little bit more oomph to them than they did.
They would.
Yeah.
Now,
because your book can't be about death, and you think it's gonna be a bestseller. I mean, it could be, but it's like
he has a positive book, right? The book is really an up.
No,
book.
for sure.
But
I love that they switched that
because he's a rock.
Oh,
so
he's a horrible narrator. But like, I love the juxtaposition of like he starts off very peppy, and then at the end he starts off peppy, but then he's like, okay, I'm finally. Nope.
Did I screw this up?
He just said, did we mess up? Because good people do have good intentions, but they still kind of mess something up. Hence Cassie unleashing them on the quantum realm and giving, you know what I mean? So like
that
she
goes
had
back
good
to the
intentions.
Of caring too, the whole like best intentions
type of thing. But I enjoyed this film. People were talking about like, they were like, Kane got beat so easily in this, and he got beat, and they people were like interchanging things. They were like, he got beat by a whole bunch of Scots, and I was like, that ain't even how the scene went. So we just lying about the whole movie. I was like, what are we
talk about this, because everybody keeps saying he won, right? He Scott beat him. No, none of the Ant people had anything to do with them winning. It was something that Hank did that ultimately made the ants travel through time and become a stage 2 civilization. And I don't know if people know what that means, but it's far advanced, probably at the level of Kang.
No, they were advanced.
Like,
they literally stripped his armor off of him. They broke him down to like, and you could tell he knew that was going to happen because he shielded himself.
Right, immediately. He was like, oh shit, I know that tech. Like he knew, like he saw it.
He knew immediately what was going to go on. But I honestly think that Kang, because his life he doesn't live linear, and he's like, I think Thor is going to die in Avengers Kang Dynasty, because I think that was like a foreshadowing to him dying in that film.
That's a good.
So I was like, point. Because he doesn't live linear. He could literally be talking about something that's about to happen, but because he's lived through so much and he's seen so much, he don't know where to place it. And I think that's what lends to his eventual madness. And this is why I love Jonathan Majors as an actor, because I don't know him as a person. I love him as anything else, but like, this is why I love him as an actor. Like he even said that, like, looking into the background of Kang and everything he did, he kind of went more of a Shakespearean, like, tragic type of figure with this, and you can see it throughout his entire performance. I love how, like, because I personally feel like this, and this might be a hot take if this is a hot take, but I felt like he loved Janet. I felt like he loved Janet, and I don't think he's loved anybody. Because when she found him and she gave him water, it was giving like Aang from the iceberg in Qatar, like the first face I've seen since like whatever. It was giving that type of vibe to me. I think he loved her, and I don't think he expected her to betray him as deeply as she did, because he could have killed her billions of times, but he wanted to drag her along the multiverse to see the worlds that he was going to conquer. He wanted to punish her for what she did to him. And I feel like he was like Bowser. If you don't marry me, then I'm gonna.
Can I give you guys a theory of mine?
Sure.
We love a theory.
What if
the
Kang from Quantumania is He Who Remains from Loki? And I say that specifically for the fact of, is it not strange that the MCU timeline was considered the sacred timeline, and the thing that he did that he was promising Janet if she helped him escape was that they would never know of his existence or the existence of the multiversal war. And by Scott killing, because remember, at one point, even Kang the Conqueror pulls out in his hand, he shows him a perfect circle of the sacred timeline, and Scott killing him means that there is no He Who Remains that would be able to defeat the other Kangs and create the sacred timeline to save from the ultimate.
So, are you saying
full
that
incursion of the multiversal war?
So, do you feel like are you saying that because the He Who Remains we see in Loki dies? So, are you saying that he didn't technically die? He just became.
But it's a loop. It's a loop. Because remember, once the incursions happen,
he died.
Once the incursions happen, because he says
because time ain't because time's not linear. So
right.
Like, you're
And
saying,
remember,
okay.
the whole purpose of having a sacred timeline was to trim the timeline so that there would never be another Nathaniel Richards existing in any other timeline. Because once you have these branches with other Kangs, they all would then start playing with time and themselves in the multiverse. And so He Who Remains was the one that was able to trim it all. And of course, why would he pick the MCU specific timeline as the one to trim if it didn't have some specific meaning, i.e., he let, in some reality, Janet saved him and let him do what he did. And they knew. And then that's why Scott's saying, he said there's something worse going on because even though the multiversal war has been talked in the past tense for Loki, it's something that is going to happen because they're already setting it up. Like the only thing that's different now is now that let's say the potential He Who Remains is dead and the Kangs are now aware of the MCU timeline of them becoming aware of the multiverse. The multiversal war is no longer going to be a battle amongst themselves. It's going to be all of the Kangs coming after MCU proper.
I mean, but think about it though. Kang Dynasty could be all of them coming in to fight every Avenger or a big battle, because at the end, is he like an Asian Kang? Because I felt kind of weird watching that scene because I didn't really see it when I watched it.
Well, they were kind of like the iterations.
The one in the middle, the one that was like. One of them was like the one that called them all. He looks
so that was like, Immortus.
He looks slightly Asian, like to me. I was like, this is kind of odd, but I was like,
you had Immortus, who I could see that he looked slightly Asian. Then you had Ramatut, who was very much of the Pharaoh of old Egyptian style, and then you had Silver Centurion that was there.
Right.
Yeah. So like he just seemed kind of, because he said that they are getting dangerously close to the multiverse, like to the multiversal like timeline. And he was like, we created this, we can't let this. So like now, because he died, because this Kang the Conqueror died, or because he keeps saying he's Conqueror, so people are just putting Kang the Conqueror like together. So because it's a possibility that he's not the Kang the Conqueror. Like it's a possibility that he just calls him, he's Kang and he conquers, but he's not the Kang the Conqueror. But I'm just, because there could be so many, but I meant they're all coming for this world because they're trying to keep it intact, but they're like, we got to wipe them out to keep it intact. It's like, I'm very interested for that.
I would argue there's an element that's sort of missing here because it's going to happen and hasn't yet. And if they do anything like the comics, which they sort of already kind of have in numerous ways, we're getting a Reed Richards. And when we get Reed Richards, this is a person that deals with the multiverse on a regular basis and has a council of his own of Reed Richards. There's a good chance.
Let's get one that don't spill secrets.
Sure, but there's a chance.
And the same portals.
We're going to get a Reed Richards that already is aware of all these Kangs, and he's the reason the Avengers are aware of it, because he'll show up with them after being launched into space in the 60s or whatever. I'm really hoping they still do the cosmic rays. I'm hoping for some real... I'm hoping Adam Driver. I'm glad they cast him.
But I do think that's
interesting.
But I do think that's interesting because Mr. Marvelite just said it when you were talking, like that. Reed popped up in the same portal that the Kangs pop up in when they were coming. So I think that's interesting that Reed Richards has that tech that the Kangs have during that time too. So I think that's very interesting.
So in the comic books, first of all, that tech was actually a Doctor Doom tech, and we know that Kang actually took tech from Doom in the past.
Yeah.
Like so there is a level of like it's all like Alabama at this point. It's like everything's breeding into itself at this point.
Because like the first thing that popped in my head when what's her name? When Janet says like he has tech that's like centuries old. The Eternals are centuries old, and his tech looks very similar to like Fastos, like rings and stuff like that. So like and like how they move and things like that. So it's possible because he's able to traverse the world. He's picked like
and plus I mean
stuff like that from everybody. From
the 10 rings are very similar in style as well.
Yes.
What if we haven't discovered this now, but and of course people were like constantly assuming when they saw the trailer that those rings are like giant versions of the Ten Rings. But
yeah.
what if they landed on Earth at the moment when Kang was exiled into the
maybe he had
quantum.
some stuff, and you don't know what popped off or broke off from like what he had or what he didn't have that landed. You never know, and I think that's a great
and we already know about locations.
Yeah.
We know about locations not having the same like linear timestamp. Like if you think about Sakaar, depending on where you fell in that portal, you had been there for weeks, or you had been there for months, or
hundreds
however
or
long,
thousands of years, even in some cases.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's just like to small it down to something that like maybe like everybody can understand. It's literally into the Spideyverse when the machine went off, and Peter's face was in it, but Gwen came in a week before that even happened. And people were always like, how did she get there before? And she literally said, I popped in a week before. But it's like, but again, time isn't linear. So like she popped in before it happened because she was going to pop in before it happened. So like so I think so a lot of these things can happen about time and like the dispersal of time and like how those things kind of like loop back around to like ours. And I just want to bring up the season 2 Loki scene. I'm interested to see how much Jonathan Majors has filmed for that, if he has filmed everything he needs to film for that. And I'm just excited to see what his narrative is in Loki 2. And I hope Loki season 2 is better than season 1, because again, there were moments that I liked, but overall how Loki's character is, I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm still excited to see what happens.
But alligator Loki. Oh, anyway, okay.
Oh, I love alligator Loki.
So, it's interesting comparatively. If you look at that end credit scene and you see how terrified Tom Hiddleston's Loki is, and then you think about how Scott comes out of it, like I'm sure it'll be okay. Like the contrast between the two.
It's not
who've had close. It's not.
That being said, let's go ahead and rate this film real quick, because we are over time, but that's okay. We did start really late, but we of course do have the end of the show to get to. So, Mr. Marvelite, what do you rate Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
I'd rate this an 8.5. It's definitely a rewatch on mine. I enjoy it. It's not like, let's say, top tier Marvel. I'm sorry, anything. I know you haven't seen it yet, but anything beating Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is going to be very difficult for me. And I really feel like this is that it's these. I will say I liked Multiverse of Madness. I liked Love and Thunder. I loved Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But I will be honest with you, they're not the strongest films that we've had. Yeah, they're definitely not down to Dark World levels, but they're just not. They're just. I can see where some people complain. You can go ahead and take it off. It's fine. But I honestly, I feel like they're not the strongest films right now.
Fair enough. How about you, Rob?
I'll get that. I sadly will have to agree with Mr. Marvelite. It's an 8.5 for me. That's the bane of my existence, agreeing with him. So I just, oh my gosh. So anywho, no, I agree. I give it an 8.5 simply because it's a Marvel film and it's amazing what they do. It's of course, could the story be stronger? It absolutely could be stronger. All the characters around could be stronger. And if you can't call something Ant-Man and the Wasp, if Hope ain't really in it like that. So, but I'm just saying, but 8, I think it's a fun ride. Obviously I told y'all the stuff that I felt like could be a part of it, but again, it's amazing. We probably won't see nothing like any of these films again in our lifetime. So I'm enjoying the ride that we on, and I agree. I know you haven't seen Guardians 3, but it's quite amazing. I thoroughly
it sets the bar very high.
It does. It's like
remember,
because
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're good. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you got to remember the reason that I probably like this film is that the last Marvel film I watched was Thor: Love and Thunder, which I hated. Like, I absolutely hated it.
No. So, nobody should like that film. Nobody should like that film. They should like pieces, but nobody should like that film.
Wait, you didn't see Wakanda Forever?
I thought Thor: Love and Thunder was Wakanda Forever the last one?
Love and Thunder was July. Wakanda Forever was November.
Maybe the one that's sticking in my craw is Love and Thunder, and it's like
it is. It grinds my gears too. You're fine, but I will say Guardians of the Galaxy 3 does set a bar, like Mr. Marvelite said, and it's because James Gunn is attached to it. I felt like if
he
what's
can't
his
make
name?
a movie I won't like. I've watched all of his movies
What's
since
the-
he's only
I
done
feel
6
like
films.
I feel like no, for sure. I feel like if Peyton Reed would have written this film like he written like the first one, I don't know if he wrote the second one or something, or at least had somebody to write with him, however it was, I believe Ant-Man 3 would have been a touch better than what it is now. But I still give it an 8.5. It was a great ride.
All right.
For Mr. SniDBitS.
That said, wow, I'm gonna have a little bit of like a throat problem here at the last second. We will be doing some DC animated universe again next week. We've got 3 more animated films. We're going to be doing Justice League, Throne of Atlantis. We'll be doing Batman, Bad Blood, and then Batman versus Robin. That'll be the follow-up to Son of Batman that we saw a few weeks ago. We will also should be available not only on Twitch and YouTube, which we did run both tonight, but we'll be available on TikTok next week. So look for us there. We should be live.
Are you going to give a rating?
I didn't.
No.
8.5.
No. Oh, it's a trifecta.
It felt right. It just felt right. I liked it a lot, but it's not perfect, right? So it's.
But it's not perfect, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not a dick. Anyway, that said, this.
No, we didn't even talk about that. Oh my goodness! Like
that said, this has been episode 29 of The Real Study. Hopefully we'll be starting on time next week. And of course, don't forget, we will be taking a summer break because podcasts in the summer don't do well, and we don't want you guys to be bored by us over the summer. So,
but we will be putting out. I'll try my best to be putting out some content and some content on the Real Study TikTok, so you guys can just see like if we watch any films or anything over the summer, give some quick reviews and things like that, just so you don't miss us too much.
Right.
You know,
but that's still weeks away. We like to run even past school and all that, so you'll see us for several more weeks. That said, have a great weekend and a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Don't forget to follow us on all social media everywhere. I don't know if you guys caught that in the beginning half because we got cut off because of technical difficulties, but don't forget to follow us everywhere on all social media, and wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find The Real Study, REEL, and don't forget to join the Discord and become a real student and hang with us and have a good time. You might even be able to request a movie or a TV show that we might check out. You never know. But we do get veto power.
That's true. And thank you, Mr. Marvelite, for showing up, talking.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me on again.
Of course.
It felt like old times, you know. It's crazy. You know.
Yeah, everybody left multiple times from being insulted, so it felt very normal.
Yeah, it felt great. Yeah.
Good night, guys.